Aloha, welcome back to PTC'25. I'm here with Sally Wentworth, the CEO of the Internet Society and the Internet Society Foundation. Sally, thank you very much for joining us. We're both PTC debutants this year. I'm having a great time. How about you?
It's spectacular. There's great connections being made in how to build internet and infrastructure across the region. It's very exciting.
Exactly, well, lots more to come as well. We're
Yeah.
barely even halfway through.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks very much for talking
Sure.
to us. So for those who don't know what the Internet Society is, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about kind of the work that you guys do?
Absolutely. So the Internet Society is an international charity dedicated to a vision that the internet is for everyone. And so the work that we do, the programs that we execute, and all of our activities are guided by that fundamental belief that the internet should be for everyone. We do that work through grant-making activities. We have a global community that's part of the Internet Society, which enables us to take this global vision to a very local level. So we have over 133,000 individual members and 129 chapters and special interest groups of volunteers all around the world implementing projects and activities in their local communities to ensure that the internet is available and accessible for everyone.
Fantastic. And you guys recently published your kind of like strategy for the next 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about kind of some of the core areas that you're going to be focusing on?
Absolutely. So the Internet Society has 2 strategic goals over the next 5 years. The first is that people everywhere have access to an affordable, reliable, and resilient internet. And second, that people everywhere have an internet experience that is safe, secure, and protects them online. And those 2 strategic goals are going to guide all of the work of the Internet Society, our program activities, as well as our grant-making activities for the next 5 years.
Okay, fantastic. And can you talk us through a few of like the steps that you're going to be taking or some of the projects that will be underway to help achieve those goals?
Yes, so our vision of connectivity is one that's grounded in the idea that we want to empower local communities to connect themselves to the internet. What we want to see is that communities, rather than groups coming in from the outside, but the local communities have both the expertise, the training, the capacity, the financial support to deploy networks and infrastructure that they can maintain and develop into the future. So the way that works out in practical terms for our work is when we focus on things like affordability and resilience, we're looking at expanding and developing a robust peering and interconnection environment in countries where that does not exist. And the idea is that in many of these countries, local content is actually hosted offshore, which makes their internet experience both expensive and unreliable, and then not very resilient in the face of climate change and other factors. So we come in to the local community and work with technical experts in that community to give them the training, the resources, the community building support to then enable them to roll out things like internet exchange points. I'm emphasizing community because for us, that's kind of the secret sauce. That's what we think is most important for resilience and sustainability, is that there's a local technical community in that country that's able to build the infrastructure, able to maintain it, has a plan for sustainability, and then in the end is prepared to defend it. Once we've done that work in the more urban places where we can deploy IXPs, we then look at how do we take that connectivity out into the hardest to reach parts of those countries. And for that, again, the model is the same. It's community driven. We empower local communities to understand what the gaps are that are preventing connectivity from coming in. We help with training and the like, and then with a little bit of seed funding, essentially grants, they get those first connections.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then how do you kind of like, how do you bring up those like skill sets within these local communities? Is that like something that you guys are like working on directly, or is it through partnerships with like the mobile carriers, like all the broadband providers?
It's a mix of both. So we have a very robust online and in-person training program that provides a lot of hands-on experience about how to build and deploy these networks. But we don't do anything alone. We don't believe in that. That's not really the model of the internet. The model of the internet is about collaboration and partnership. And so depending on the regions or where we might be working, we would pull in experts. They might be from industry, they might be from academia, other partners in the internet ecosystem, to surround those communities with the expertise that they need to carry forward.
Fantastic. And then is there any like specific markets or regions that you guys are particularly focused on over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so for the interconnection work that we want to do and building the IXPs, we've been very active in that space. I think we deployed over 60 IXPs in developing markets over the last 5 years. Looking into the future, we have a particular focus on least developed countries and small island developing states, where that interconnection and peering infrastructure is very, very fragile if it exists at all.
And you mentioned earlier about kind of like content being, you know, hosted or stored overseas.
Yeah.
I guess like to bring that onshore for some of these markets, there needs to be a lot of investment into their kind of like data center industry.
Could be, yeah.
Is that like kind of something that you look at supporting as well? Or?
So we aren't in the data center business per se, but a lot of the conditions that we're looking at for deploying IXPs, I think, are similar to what data center operators are looking for as well. And so there is a relationship between the two, and we're very conscious of that. But it takes a fair amount of work. You need to have a lot of different factors for that content to come home. You know, you need to have a strong interconnection environment. You need to have a robust infrastructure. The governance environment, the market readiness is really important. Are the regulations stable and predictable and transparent? Are they supportive of internet exchanges and those sorts of things? So there's a lot that goes into bringing that content back home.
Yep.
And then we do a lot of measurement to see if it's working. We have a tool that we use, it's called Pulse, that we've developed, and it's published, it's freely available for anybody to look at, where we look at resiliency data to help guide our investments, but also to help guide anybody else who might be working in the market. And our goal is that in the markets we work in, eventually we should see that 50% of local traffic is cached domestically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess in a lot of like the markets where there is like lower internet penetration, I feel you seem to find that what internet connectivity there is tends to be more like mobile focused rather than fixed. Is that a fair thing to say? Or?
I think that is often the case, and you really need a mix of both. I think for that kind of resiliency and robust infrastructure. So we work in a lot of those different kinds of environments, but you know, we're interested in terrestrial fiber rollout, but also, you know, mobile is a big important infrastructure in those markets for sure.
How does like satellite connectivity factor into that as well?
Yeah, I mean, as low Earth orbit satellites come on board, that is increasingly an option for backhaul and some other infrastructure needs in those countries. I mean, we aren't focused on the specific technology. What we're focused on is working with the community, the local community, to actually define the needs based on data and based on those conditions, so that we're working with them to deploy a mix of technology that actually works in their environment.
Yeah. And you mentioned like once you kind of like on an established, you know, you kind of bring up connectivity in an area, it's equally as important to maintain it and make sure that connection and connectivity stays, right?
Yeah.
Because people come to rely on the internet, it becomes part of your daily life, and if it's to go away, then, you know, pretty profound consequences.
Right.
So how does that kind of play into like that ongoing support?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, a really important component of this is strengthening the local technical communities in the country. And those can be comprised of lots of different players. There could be a National Research Education Network, or NRENs, the ISPs, of course, sometimes government regulators, academia. There's a whole mix of potential technical experts in a country, and we really try to both upskill them where that's necessary, but also help to build that as a community, and then to connect that technical community with similar technical communities in their region or in their space. So maybe with network operator groups, or with IXP associations, or regional IXP associations, and similar groups like that, because it's that infrastructure, that almost human infrastructure, connecting the technical communities is what contributes to resilience. When we all observed cuts in the submarine cables off the coast of West Africa earlier this year, that was a huge blow to West Africa, obviously. But what had happened over the decade prior was an investment in internet exchange points, a lot of local traffic, and very strong technical communities in those countries that immediately came together, provisioned alternative routes, terrestrial routes, and kept the internet online while the submarine cable infrastructure was being repaired. So without the technical communities existing, being strong, and then connecting with each other, it's very hard to maintain the infrastructure.
I think that's a really good example as well, right? Because like with that, the West Africa cuts, I think it was the only cable connecting to a number of markets.
That's right.
Was 7. And yeah, like if you look at kind of like the traffic data received, like in the vast majority of cases, like kind of services were brought back relatively quickly, right? So it's great to see that kind of resilience. Fantastic. Sally, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
And for everyone watching at home, thank you very much. You can check out the Tech Capital for more news, views, industry insights. The Tech Capital is where you lead, we report.